I've been poisoned 3 times.
Now let Diddy out. Free Diddy.
Wow, you think somebody didn't want me to do this interview? Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Why are so many people coming down with pneumonia?
What could make a seasoned artist like Diddy visibly lose his cool in a courtroom? And why is Ray J screaming "Free Diddy"? What he revealed next left the entire court in stunned silence.
I think it's kind of becoming a circus, and all the allegations, and now with everybody explaining like what's happening in the bedroom. I mean, every day it just sounds crazier and crazier and freakier and weirder, right? And I'm like trying to understand, with all this being said, like with Kid Cudi going on and saying everything that happened, but then ended up saying, Cassie played both of us. You know, it's like, where are we trying to go? Are we just trying to like tell all of these crazy stories and then that equals out to sex trafficking? I mean, it's starting to become outrageous. It's a RICO case. It's really only Diddy and maybe one other person. Like, I'm just starting to feel uncomfortable and I'm starting to feel weird about this whole thing.
Well, it was certainly interesting last week when I interviewed this guy who had the pseudonym The Punisher, who was hired, and it was Cassie Ventura. Right, so it was a sort of very interesting interview because Cassie Ventura did all the negotiating, did all the payments, and did all the texting to him. Diddy would sit in the corner of a hotel room naked, and he would watch, with her apparent full consent, this guy come in and have sex with her. And it happened maybe a dozen times over a 2.5-year period. Now, none of that says to me that that is a serious crime. If she is the one that is organizing it all. Now, she is arguing it was coercion and so on. You know all these people very well. You know Cassie Ventura. You know Diddy.
Courtroom was already tense, and as Dylan sat at the defense table, the judge and the crowded gallery watched every move he made. The trial attracted media attention, and the air was charged with excitement as both spectators and reporters raced through their notepads, with almost every seat occupied and cameras swarming outside the doors. However, even in a trial already marred by tragic, given that no one could have foreseen what would happen next, Ray J, who had been sitting calmly amid the crowd, abruptly sprang up and his shout ripped through the muted atmosphere, quickly silencing the room. For a minute, everyone halted and whipped towards him as he cried, "Free Diddy!" His voice reverberated off the courthouse walls, and his words were not simply filled with rage, but also with despair. Every face in the gallery gasped as Ray J's outburst cut the judge off in the middle of her sentence. The judge scowled in obvious surprise, and her gavel struck the bench with a loud boom, demanding order, but the event was out of control. Diddy's normally calm demeanor was clearly unsettled, and he fidgeted on the defense table while avoiding eye contact with the incident. Just steps away from him, some jurors exchanged confused looks, while others continued to stare at Ray J as they tried to comprehend what was occurring. Meanwhile, the attorneys for both sides were frantically whispering among themselves. Ray J's remarks held weight that went beyond simply endorsing Diddy. He made it apparent that there was more going on beneath the surface, and they were obviously rushing to ascertain how this disturbance may impact the case. "You're all looking in the wrong direction," he continued, raising his voice even louder. "You don't even know the half of it." The murmurs of the gathering became more audible, and their interest turned into screaming. The courtroom was tense, the tension almost tangible, and Ray J didn't just look insane. He seemed to be making a point that none of them were ready to hear. Die's uneasiness became increasingly apparent. As his gaze, it wasn't simply the words "Free Diddy" that seemed to scare him. Ray J's following cryptic comment delivered an even worse message. Ray J's enigmatic statements hinted at a hidden truth, something that had not previously been seen, and the intensity of his tirade left everyone reeling from what they had just seen. Eventually, security escorted Ray J out of the courtroom, but the impact of his comments persisted. The atmosphere in the room had completely changed. Reporters scrawled frantically, and the audience continued to whisper, "What could Ray J possibly mean? What secret could be so dangerous that he would risk an outburst while such a well-known trial? And more significantly, how did Diddy get involved?" Whatever the reason, it appeared as though the trial had suddenly taken a course that no one could stop. Anticipated to the witness stand. where he sat down visibly disturbed but determined to keep the judge in his seat. The courtroom fought.
I was just thinking, like, what year are we in? Like, it feels like we're in this vortex of like this dominatrix story about all of these different characters that are coming out and the names and the nicknames. And I mean, it's intense. I think that it's entertaining for sure, and it's definitely press worthy. But at the end of it all, it's like, this is what Diddy is being charged for, and this is what he possibly might serve a lot of jail time for. I don't understand it, and I really want to know where this is all gonna go and where does this lead? Because again, it's weird, it's freaky, like the whole oral thing with the 19 guys and the blisters. I mean, it feels like they're just trying to paint these pictures of Diddy, and I was around Diddy all the way pretty much up until the arrest, and all I got from that when I hung out with Diddy, and this is word to my mom and kids, he's always inspired me to be great. When I left, I felt like I could do more for my business. I felt like I had more power because I wanted to be more vocal in running my companies and call my wife if we were getting into it and send her flowers. I mean, these are all the things he was instilling to me and all of the young guys around that were inspired and you know, look at him as a mentor. So now these private things that happen when we were around and never even got a chance to see this kind of crazy stuff, it just sounds like this was a private, personal thing that was happening, and now it's starting to become it's diabolical.
The courtroom struggled
to reestablish order. Clearly irritated by the interruption, he hammered her gavel once more and ordered silence. All eyes were on Ray J as he leaned forward, his voice steady but emotional, and his next remarks weren't simply unexpected. They altered. The Ray J started up sharply, saying, "I'm not just here to defend Diddy," adding, "I'm here because someone tried to end me and I'm done staying quiet about it." The gallery was instantly tense. With a general uneasiness leaking through the A's, the air grew denser. A few reporters in the rear of the audience exchanged shocked looks, their pens scrawling frantically to record every word he spoke. Who could Ray J possibly be implicating in such a serious accusation? The prosecution scowled, clearly taken aback, and Diddy ducked out of sight as though he was content to vanish. "They know who they are," Ray J said, continuing to look around the room. "They've been strolling around like they have already triumphed." When Ray J dropped the bombshell, everyone's heads automatically went to face the defense table where Diddy sat, expressionless. Yet his voice trembled slightly as he said "I'm talking about James Winston," he added firmly, making sure every word was understood. "Name that hung over the room like a thundercloud," he said. The crowd gasped, and a woman in the gallery yelled, "What?" Few people anticipated hearing the name of James Winston, a prominent person in the entertainment industry, before the judge once again sought an injunction. Winston was well known for his business connections with several notable, the most powerful individuals in the field, but his alleged attempted murder charge was a shocking admission that rocked the courtroom and social media as the news quickly traveled among reporters, rushed to type more quickly, with some screaming the name into their phones and others sharing the news in real time with their editors. However, Ray J's assertion carried more weight than simple rumors, as he continued to detail instances he thought formed a concerted attempt to silence him. He described receiving cryptic warnings about dangerous brushstrokes that were passed off as accidents and a terrifying experience where he thought his life was actually in danger. "I've been trying to keep things under control," the judge cautioned the court, "but they know I'm right. They know what they did." He added, gazing directly at Diddy across the courtroom, "Holding this in for too long." The room was filled with murmuring once more as Ray J's evidence hung, but no one could take their eyes off Diddy, whose face was unreadable but whose hands showed the slightest uncontrollable quiver on the tabletop. Whatever happened next, it was obvious that this claim wasn't only a sideshow. It suddenly felt like the main focus of Diddy's trial, leaving many wondering what evidence, if Ray J had to support it. Diddy was renowned for his measured composure, a man who seldom let emotions to show through his well-maintained public persona.
Had to back it up.
Sounds to me, unless I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you think that there's been a massive overreach here. This is personal behavior between Diddy and Cassie Ventura that we've seen so far, that it doesn't cross the line from where you sit into serious crime under the RICO law, which of course was, intended for mafia members and so on. Do you think that's what we're witnessing here with this case? That this was consensual? It may be freaky, it may be sexually deviant, it may be all these things, but it was apparently consensual behavior and not a crime.
I agree, and there's things that we saw in these videos, they were disturbing, and that's not okay, right? But looking at the crimes that he's being charged for, this is where it starts to go overboard, and it's like whoever was mad at the top was really mad, and I think we're here now, and I think it's a flex, because what are they trying to get out of this in this court case? Does everybody that's talking about these stories, do they want to see Puffy rot in jail? Is that what we're here for? Because I just think that that's unfair, and just knowing everybody, it just could have been done a different way, and now it's starting to worry me, and I honestly think that Diddy will get out, and I think that there's nothing here. Right? I think they made their point, whatever they were trying to make. Your point is made.
Persona. However, as Ray J's charges penetrated further, that painstakingly constructed exterior started to reveal indications of stress, and James Winston's Diddy didn't flinch as his name was said out loud, but his stance straightened as his left hand, which had been stable on the tabletop for the majority of the trial, slowly clutched the edge of the table while his jaw remained clenched and his eyes remained fixed. From a distance, everything might have seemed calm, but if you looked closer, you could see the tension building. By this point, everyone's eyes were shifting between Ray J and Diddy, analyzing the words and interpreting the audience's body language. Diddy refused to look into their eyes, or anyone's for that matter, instead lowering his head a little and shifting his hand to fix his collar as the jury stayed silent and told him not to respond, but their combined energy was evident. The accusations had obviously changed the trial's fundamental axis, and Diddy did not respond when his lawyer leaned in and whispered something hurriedly in his ear if the air surrounding him felt suddenly oppressive. In the gallery, the shift was instantaneous as phones buzzed from muffled vibrations as texts, and tweets poured out quicker than anyone could keep up with reporters leaning into each other to corroborate the new, dangerous twist, while lawyers for both sides frantically tried to digest it. Diddy's response, or lack thereof, became one of the most observed moments in the room as the spelling of Winston's name was already planning the headlines they would issue the soon a break was called. This was no longer just about Ray J, how Diddy bore the burden of these accusations, and how the public would perceive each flaw in his meticulously preserved persona. And the flaws were starting to show as Ray J went on to describe specifics of what he said were planned attempts to Diddy's cool demeanor began to crack. His shoulders sagged slightly, his breathing seemed labored, and for the first time since the trial begun, he laid both hands flat on the table, pressing their fingers against the surface as if to ground himself, as if to threaten his life. However, when Ray J related a particular incident involving manipulated brakes on his automobile and a claimed near-death experience, his composure completely collapsed. He slumped back in his chair and let out a big breath, which for the briefest period quieted even the whispering. When his lips opened to reply, he instantly caught himself tightening his jaw once more, but the damage had already been done. His response validated the gravity of what had been stated. It no longer seemed like courtroom theater, and this moment was already social media was ablaze with rumors that Diddy was crumbling under the strain and that Ray J's charges were true. What would this mean for the already unstable course of the trial in the courtroom? Even as Diddy's silence loomed larger than every movement, every twitch, every labored breath, and every phrase he could have said were all noted. And when Ray J's testimony approached his supporting evidence, it appeared that whatever Diddy's remaining poise was borrowed dodgy. Duration, interview, 1502, 17 to 34 A's, the judge ordered Ray J to continue with his testimony, the tension in the room peaked. His earlier statements had already rocked the courtroom, but now everyone's attention was on the evidence he claimed to have, were staring at him as he hesitated, prolonging the moment.
Whenever they have an addiction to MDMA or the drug ecstasy, they call it the love drug. So he's been doing this drug for over 20 years. So that's gonna lead his view skewed when it comes to sexual activity. I believe it's helped turn him into a sexual deviant. And you know, what type of man wants to see another man urinate in his wife's mouth? I feel like it's evil. I think his behavior is egregious. And you know, I have a history of using very heinous acts on people like this who participate in this type of lascivious acts. Have you ever noticed how in this industry, people untimely meet their demise as soon as somebody else seems like they're having a problem? Have you ever seen that before?
Well, there was, of course, the case of one of his other ex-girlfriends, Kim Porter, who died of pneumonia at a very young age. You just referenced your own situation with pneumonia that you believe was deliberate poisoning. Do you believe that may be what happened to her?
Jamie Foxx said out of his mouth that his partner handed him an Advil, and after he took that Advil, he woke up 22 days later. That's what he said out of his mouth. I feel like us as a species, I feel like human skepticism has become a virus, because if we don't trust the words of our peers, where are we as a species? You know, eyewitness testimony and circumstantial evidence is enough to get a person a life sentence in any court on the earth. Why is it that when people are whistleblowing and putting their life and livelihood on the line, they receive so much scrutiny? I don't think that's by chance.
There have been rumors circulating online that Diddy may have poisoned Jamie Foxx, which caused his 2023 hospitalization. In his Netflix show, he compared Combs to the devil in revealing his near-death experience after a brain bleed and stroke. He said, I say this all the time, I saw the tunnel, I didn't see the light. It was hot in that tunnel. I thought, shit, have I gone to the wrong place? I looked up the end of a tunnel and I thought I saw the devil saying, come on, or was that Puffy? I'm effing around, but if that was Puffy at a flaming bottle of Johnson, and no, I'm just kidding, I think that you have taken that to be a not too oblique reference to the fact that he's suggesting he may too have been poisoned.
The quiet was so dense that, for a little period, even the slight squeak of someone moving in their seat seemed to be exaggerated. It looked as if no one dared to breathe. Ray J cleared his Leaning closer to the microphone on the witness stand, he remarked, I brought receipts, and the next few moments were nothing short of captivating. He first produced a stack of printed out emails, direct emails that he said were between himself and James Winston's associates. The wording used in these emails was somewhat cryptic, but Ray J pointed out a number of terrifying lines, one of which he read aloud and which read, "Will make. If you continue to speak and allow the weight of your words to linger in the air, you'll be permanently silenced." The courtroom was completely silent as everyone awaited his next move, and he flicked to another. Ray J claimed to have phone records that demonstrated numerous calls from an unidentified number. These calls weren't only threats. Rather, they were warnings connected to certain situations, one of which was made just a few hours prior. The defense quickly objected, claiming it was hearsay, but the judge permitted the presentation to continue. His near-fatal automobile brake failure reportedly remarked, "Watch your back accidents happen every day." Continue saying, "The evidence will speak for itself." However, it was Ray J's display of a picture showing what he claimed to be altered brake lines that really stunned the courtroom. He explained from his vehicle how his mechanic had discovered the issue and how, in his opinion, the intentional damage wasn't compatible with normal wear and tear. Some jury members leaned forward a little, unable to. The prosecution tried to cast doubt on Ray J's veracity by asking why he hadn't come forward with this proof sooner, but Ray J didn't bat an eye. Others kept their features motionless and neutral to conceal their curiosity. He responded, "I stayed silent because I was afraid I didn't know who I could trust, but now I've had enough." The courtroom was silent as attorneys crowded in, whispered, "Conversations." Although the evidence was circumstantial in some cases, it was strong enough to unnerve everyone. The judge's look was impartial, but it was obvious that she was also considering the importance of whatever happened next. It was obvious that Ray J's accusations may alter not only the outcome of what had just been delivered, but the rumors. And speculation only intensified when the session broke for break. Diddy's court case, but possibly even his, career and public perception indefinitely. Jay's testimony had an instantaneous and enormous impact. Within hours,
Forever.
Because the last time I was scheduled to be in this interview, randomly, our car gets hit from the side by a blacked out vehicle. No license plate. That's happened 3 times this month so far.
Really?
Somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. You know, I'm somebody where I've had FBI come to my house before and tell me they found a threat against my life.
P. Diddy, this seems like every day the scandal gets bigger and worse for him.
Yeah, it certainly does, and I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, I think I was on your show before he got arrested, and I brought up what was going on with him, and because I had read through the lawsuit, and it was just one of those things that was unavoidable because there was so much evidence. I mean, there was picture documentation, there was video documentation, and I also want to be clear that the press and the media and the public at large is shocked by what's happening, but we really are just getting to the beginning of everything.
A lot of things start happening to remove people from the case that are going to strengthen the case for the prosecution. And I feel like we're watching that take place now with one of the male sex worker guys who provided tapes to the feds. He's disappeared. And this is similar to what happened in the Tory Lanez case, where the bodyguard whose DNA was on the weapon, he disappeared.
She and Cassie needed to sway Kid Cudi against telling the cops that Diddy was involved in the alleged break-in. Clark testified, quote, he says, if you guys don't convince him of that, I'll kill all you MFers. But that wasn't the only time that Clark said that she feared for her own life. She claimed Diddy once accused her of stealing diamond jewelry. Said that she suffered through 5 straight days of lie detector tests inside of a gutted, run-down Manhattan office building. She testified the man giving the tests warned her, quote, I'm not getting a good reading. You need to calm down. You're going to be in the East River if I can't get a reading on this.
And the prosecution had alleged in its opening he had staffers who helped him commit crimes that aren't necessarily charged, statute of limitations expired, etc., but that he committed as part of this overall criminal enterprise. Phil, let me start with you on whether the prosecution is making its case.
Well, it sounds like, Megan, they're finally getting into some of the meat of the matter, because up until now, we've heard a lot of emotionally charged testimony. We've heard about domestic violence. We've heard about, third-rate burglaries and things like that, like you were just discussing. But we haven't heard much about how this was some type of criminal enterprise related to, sex trafficking. We're starting to hear now that who these people are that are the other racketeers. You've got other employees, security personnel. And so the government is starting to make its case. They've got a long way to go. But until today, I had a lot of reasonable doubt that things that I was thinking about, because these witnesses all seem to have some degree of kind of affection for Combs, or maybe had affection in the past. And it may be that they all had some kind of an angle, some incentive to testify against him, maybe sour grapes.
News stories slathered his charges across every major media, and social media was ablaze with ideas, memes, and arguments, transforming the trial into a cultural phenomenon in which supporters, detractors, and bystanders took sides. The public narrative wasn't solely about Diddy, as the "you'd die free" Diddy trended globally, with more speculative ones like Ragewicite and Winston Exposed. What had begun as a trial centered on Diddy abruptly turned into a complex network connecting power, terror, and the hidden perils of celebrity life. In the courtroom, the prosecutors appeared obviously shaken. Up until that point, their approach had been simple. However, Ray J's charges had brought the entertainment industry into the forefront, prompting uneasy questions about what more might be hiding beneath the surface, maintaining the jury's attention on Diddy's charges. But J's disclosure completely changed the course of events. His charges against James Winston depicted a far more extensive conspiracy, and his stunning testimony made everyone reevaluate. the defense team huddled during break, questioning whether this new course would truly help their case. If Ray J's story took the jury's attention away from Diddy's activities, it would cause them to lose sight of the charges entirely. Meanwhile, prosecutors were under increasing pressure to address whether Winston's claimed involvement created genuine questions over Diddy's guilt. The trial, which had previously followed a clear path, was suddenly much messier, and both sides appeared to be acutely aware of how much the stakes had increased for Diddy. The effect went well beyond legal tactics in the court of public opinion, and attitudes started to change. Had always struck a balance between his status as a cultural hero and ongoing controversy. But suddenly, even his most ardent admirers had to face uncomfortable questions. Was he participating in something bigger, without consent, or did he know more than he revealed to the media frenzy outside the courtroom descended into late-night discussions as commentators speculated about whether this trial might expose weaknesses in a decades-old entertainment empire. Ray J's charges not only implicated Winston, but also brought him into the public eye, prompting inquiries about his intentions almost immediately. His reputation, which had previously been shaped by reality TV and music, now carried the weight of something much more serious. While some critics criticized his testimony as calculating theatrics, others applauded his bravery for speaking candidly, particularly in a trial as high-profile as this one. There was no denying that whether one agreed or disagreed, Ray J's testimony had irrevocably changed the course of his career and public image. However, the most notable moment occurred when the judge spoke in the courtroom shortly before break. Her tone was measured but firm. "Allegations of this magnitude must be thoroughly examined," she said, locking as the court adjourned for the day. There were still uncertainties about whether Ray J's evidence could hold up to examination, and whether Diddy's defense would take advantage of the pandemonium. However, eyes with Ray J, it wasn't a dismissal nor an endorsement, it was an acknowledgement of just how serious the situation had become. It was obvious that whatever happened next could change not only the trial, but also the legacy of all those involved. Celebrity trials have a way of revealing facts that can upend even the biggest empires, and this one is no different. Ray J's startling allegations have brought attention to the erratic and high-stakes world of celebrity, where even the slightest breach can bring towering reputations to their knees. But with unresolved questions and unfinished stories, this trial is far from over. What happens next might permanently change lives and careers, so keep an eye out for additional information, because if this case has shown anything, it's that nothing in the realm of well-publicized scandals is ever as quiet as it appears.